shape our position on this matter. Thank you. Thank you. Newsfront Bulgaria, are you here with us? Okay, moving on. Verelk. Colleagues, we do not have much time today, so we will keep it short and simple. Madam Zakharova, hello. I have two questions. First one, could you please comment on the visit by Vice President Vance to Azerbaijan and Armenia, as well as the arrangements that were reached, including in nuclear energy? As for any details on the announced project of small nuclear reactors, US made, worth $9 billion, well, these details were not provided, and I was quite interested in this topic because it's curious to know how they were produced, where they're produced. According to some Armenian media, it is an unparalleled American investment in the Armenian economy. Well, this was the Russian translation. I do not know how that was put in Armenian, but I hope that this word means that it's one of a kind, and that will definitely happen. But supposedly the Armenians are to pay for that, not the Americans, and the funds will go through the TRIP Foundation. Allegedly, it is conceived for other investment projects, so it looks quite murky. Well, let's delve into the detail a bit more. When it comes to energy matters, this is all very curious. Probably you have seen reports on the construction of the nuclear power plant that were discussed regularly with Yerevan at various levels, and Rosatom regularly comments on this topic, as well as the comment of Deputy Foreign Minister Mr. Galuzin regarding the modalities of possible Moscow participation in TRIP project. I should say that Yerevan is free to choose its partners. However, the choice in favor of American technologies, it raises some issues. The U.S. small nuclear power plants are non-existent. It's not that they do not exist in the U.S. territory. They do not exist at all. They only exist on paper. If that's not true, well, correct me if I'm wrong. I try to understand where we can take a look at these miracles of technology, but I haven't found anything. As for the price, it could be much higher than the tentative price that you can see in some promotion materials, and the project of this small nuclear power plant was put on ice in 2024 in the US because the cost rose from 5 to 10 billion USD. Allegedly, Armenia would use it will be used as a test range for the untested American technologies, and hence begs the question. It begs the question: what will be done with the nuclear waste? Where will it be buried? In the Armenian territory, in the Armenian mountains? Let's get back to our cooperation, energy cooperation with Armenia. We are a trusted partner of Yerevan in nuclear energy for decades. In 1995, the Russian side helped rebuild and relaunch the Armenian NPP. For all these years, we have been providing assistance in operating this, in maintenance and supplying of fuel to the NPP, and with our help, we have extended the operation till 2026, and thanks to that, the Armenian NPP is still in operation. We are working together at another project to extend the life cycle of the NPP till 2036. Russia is the only state who's been operating small nuclear power plants, and we have repeatedly provided the tested solutions to our partners, whether it is big NPP or small NPP.
We have various options which would make sure that the nuclear power maintains a solid share in the energy balance of the Republic. The competitive advantage of the Russian technologies has been showcased to the Armenian side on numerous occasions. Last time was on the 6th of February during the meeting of the Director General of the Rosatom State Corporation, Mr. Likhachov, with the Chair of the National Assembly of Armenia, Mr. Simonyan, as part of his official visit to Russia. There were numerous discussions of this topic during the sessions of the Bilateral Intergovernmental Commission on Economic Cooperation, and mindful of the nature of the bilateral relations between our two countries, we stand ready to elaborate reduced rate financing models, and we talked about this with the Armenian side too, so all these proposals are still relevant. However, should you find any successful project of the aforementioned American model, please share it with us. Did I answer your question? Yes. In fact, we had two questions. The second question is, what is your view of the visit of J.D. Vance to Armenia? We have already shared our views during the publishing of the official materials. And the second question to Madam Zakharova, you mentioned the interview by the Deputy Foreign Minister Galuzin, who was talking about Russia acting as a guarantor for the Armenian nuclear power sphere. And he once again said that Russia stood ready to discuss the parameters for Moscow's possible participation in the future project. I have a question. What is the basis for the approach of the Russian side? If the Armenian authorities themselves are saying that this is an entirely Armenian-US project and that Russia will not be invited to join, we see that they are preferring the American side in the construction of the new nuclear power plant. I just made a comment on that. As I said, we have had a long history of cooperation on this track, and it is mutually beneficial. It contributes to strengthening the energy security of our two countries and the region in general. This is not a joking matter. This is not something you can start talking about, then getting the money, and then immediately start constructing some foundation, and then leaving it behind, like they did in the US in 2024. This is a matter of energy security. If the climate were different, and if they could afford not getting heating, or if they had any other sources of energy, perhaps this matter would not be as serious. However, we know the meaning of aid and humanitarian aid to the people of Armenia. We know how the people need warm clothing. We know how families need help when they can't receive any conditions for living. We've been through that. So we want to start getting into these things, since we share a common region, since this is about our common energy security. You can't just say that this would never concern the interests of the entire region, and most importantly, we are reliable partners for Yerevan and have been throughout the years. These are all the arguments. And on trip, we will publish the answer on the website in more detail. Is Russia Today with us? Hello, Anastasia Mirovich, RT Balkan. We have one question today. How could you comment on the position of the UK ambassador to Serbia, saying that in accordance with the resolution 1244 they have the right to arm the regime in Pristina? What is the purpose of arming the so-called Kosovo Security Force, and why is Great Britain organizing joint exercises of Kosovo and Ukrainian soldiers? This is a classic fake story. The interview that you mentioned contains examples of distortions and replacements of notions. This is the classic of the toolkit of the false facts and narratives used by the West. We see London and other capitals are aspiring to legitimize the secondary role of the UN Security Council in the Kosovo settlement. Article 25 of the UN Charter prescribes mandatory compliance by all member states with the decisions of this key body. However, the West tacitly perceives the UN Security Council Resolution 1244 and the principles laid down in it as allegedly not meeting the realities of today. This is not only about the disregard by EU and NATO countries of the ban on the activity of any military formations in Kosovo, except for international presence. The first and main blow to the Resolution 1244 was struck in 2008 by the mass recognition of the unilaterally proclaimed independence of the so-called Republic of Kosovo. Thereby, the decisions of the UN Security Council on introducing a transitional regime for the region while maintaining the territorial integrity of Serbia and searching for a final solution exclusively through negotiations between Belgrade and Pristina was subjected to open sabotage. We talked about this many times. So when the UK ambassador speaks about states that recognized Kosovo, a number of which he found difficult to name, he speaks first of all about participants in the collective violation of international law. This has nothing to do with the declared acquisition of sovereignty by Pristina, the appearance of its own defense and security interests. This anti-Serbian action has nothing to do with that. It may seem strange, but the UK ambassador to Serbia is not familiar with the content of the basic Brussels agreements of 2013-2015 between Belgrade and Pristina, concluded under the written guarantees of the European Union, the cornerstone of which is the creation of the community of Serb municipalities of Kosovo. I am not mistaken. The UK was still part of the EU back then. Pristina has defiantly ignored this obligation for almost 13 years. This, however, did not prevent the Briton from baselessly accusing the Serbian side of not fulfilling them. I think they're confused in their own tricks, and the diplomat characterized the agreements of the parties from 2023 as legally binding. Perhaps he forgot that at that time only oral, unsigned understandings were discussed, which Belgrade subsequently officially rejected as contradicting the national interests of Serbia. We once again state that a sustainable settlement of the Kosovo problem is possible exclusively on the basis of the UN Security Council Resolution 1244. We will accept only such a solution that suits the Serbs themselves. Thank you. Thank you. Do we have Sputnik Belarus? Good afternoon, Andrei Sobolevsky, Sputnik Belarus. On the 9th of February, the Press Bureau of the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service published information that the Western intelligence services, Poland, the UK and so on, are seeking the so-called liberal activists to prepare more cult revolutions. How do you perceive the risks of such activities for the entire Union state of Russia and Belarus, and how are you coordinating the efforts to prevent any foreign attempts to undermine the constitutional order and sovereignty of our countries? We fully share the assessments given by the Foreign Intelligence Service. We have no reasons to doubt the severity of the threats. As you know, in 2020, the Western regimes already tried to establish a network of their influence agents to organize a colored revolution in Belarus. However, thanks to the determination of the Belarusian authorities and people, a Maidan in Belarus was prevented, but the West is still trying to detach our countries from each other. They are trying to seek revenge. Perhaps they are seeking a moment for such an activities. A hypothetical coup in Belarus would undermine all the achievements of our union state with Belarus. Belarus has always been seen as a stronghold of stability at our western border. However, the Belarusian society has already received a vaccine against attempts to destabilize the internal political situation. The Republican authorities have taken a number of decisive measures to cleanse the country of the so-called pro-Western democratizing structures and tighten legislation regarding NGOs in order to prevent their subversive work from within. Nevertheless, we and our Belarusian allies do not intend to sit idly by. As far as we know, close partnership interaction is being carried out between our Security Council and special services. The Ministries of Foreign Affairs also contribute to this work in addition to close coordination and mutual support on international platforms in accordance with the bilateral program of coordinated actions in the field of foreign policy. With our active participation in recent years, the legal framework of the Union State in the field of security has been qualitatively strengthened. In December 2024, let me remind you, the Supreme State Council of the Union State approved the security concept of the Union State, which contains a comprehensive assessment of existing and projected threats to the security of our integration association, with a set of joint measures to neutralize and prevent them. On the sidelines of this event, the presidents of the two countries also signed an interstate agreement on security guarantees within the framework of the Union State, which entered into force in March 2025. It fixes a wide list of mutually allied obligations to ensure defense, protect the sovereignty, independence and constitutional order of Russia and Belarus, the integrity and inviolability of the territory and external border of the Union State, employing all available forces and means, including nuclear weapons, in accordance with the fundamentals of state policy of the Russian Federation in the field of nuclear deterrence approved on November 19, 2024. In September 2025, the first meeting of interdepartmental delegations of the two countries, headed by Deputy Foreign Ministers Mr. Grushko and Mr. Sekreta, appointed by the Presidents of Russia and Belarus as special representatives for the review of the operation of the treaty, took place in Moscow. During the negotiations, the coincidence of assessments of the situation in the security sphere of the Union State was noted. In March of this year, the second meeting of special representatives will be held in Minsk, at which a wide range of threats to the external and internal security of our countries will be considered, and joint steps to stop and prevent them will be determined. Thank you. Let us move on. Is the news.ru with us? Yes, hello, Madam Zakharova. News.ru, Pavel Vorobyev. We have one question today for you. Ukrainian President Zelensky said that Europe was intending to give Europe 250 aircraft, including 150 Swedish Gripen fighters and 100 French Rafales. Why do you think this is taking place? A few days after the latest round of negotiations between Russia, the US and Ukraine in Abu Dhabi, why do EU countries continue to pump Kyiv with weapons? This message is not news. Back in 2025, Zelensky repeatedly spoke about plans by Stockholm and Paris to supply their aircraft to Ukraine. Moreover, in October and November last year, he signed corresponding agreements with Swedish Prime Minister and French President. However, matters have not yet gone beyond declarations of intent, and it is unlikely that anything will change in this regard in the foreseeable future. Europe simply does not have the production capacity to implement such ambitious plans. At the same time, the announcements of new military financial tranches from Western sponsors, frequently voiced by Kyiv, convincingly testify to the absence of any desire for peace on their part and its curators, and their determination to continue the conflict. I see. Thank you for the answer. Thank you. I see numerous questions from the Chinese journalists. I know that they ask me to make a comment on the upcoming festivities in China for the Lunar New Year and do it in Chinese. If I may, I will do it separately and we will publish this as a video. And I will have the great pleasure in doing so. Let us move further. Is the Reuters agency with us? Yes, good afternoon. We are with you. We have a question concerning Ukraine, in particular about an article by the Politico, which says that the EU is developing a plan for Ukraine's partial accession to the EU as early as next year. We have a question. Is Ukraine's EU membership still acceptable to Russia? And does Russia not fear the risks? Or rather, is Ukraine's potential EU membership a risk for the beginning of a pan-European conflict? I like the wording about the partial accession. I think the EU is already partially involved with Ukraine. Now they only need Ukraine to partially join the EU to hit the final nail on the European Union. All of this wordplay and endless seeking of new wording, even in violation of their own rules and norms, they have degraded the situation on the European continent to such a low state. There is no economic point, there is no humanitarian dimension, there is no coordination in the peace-building sphere if we are talking about this initiative. This is only about pure manipulations by the Western curators and the Kyiv regime, which they are using as their own tool. We clearly understand that such activities will continue. We mentioned that there have been countries who are waiting to join the EU for decades. They've done all the trials, they have changed their legislation, but still they are deemed unworthy even to become partial members. Perhaps Ukraine is worthy of this proud title of the partial member. This is nothing but political manipulation. Thank you very much. We're going very fast through the questions. Is the Kyiv agency with us? Yes. Hello, Madam Zakharova. I have a question regarding the situation regarding the expiration of the New START treaty. When the treaty expired, certain US media reported that the governments of the countries were coordinating their efforts in order to begin talks on an extension of it. How do you think the talks between the countries will take place? And will they take place? All the arguments that we have presented due to the expiration of the New START treaty have been presented in the declaration of the Foreign Ministry on the 4th of February this year, and that statement is still relevant. Dear colleagues, this will be the end of my briefing. I will answer all the remaining questions. Some of you, like the Chinese journalists, will get an exclusive video of a message in the Chinese language. Some will get their answers when we publish the materials on our website. Thank you very much.